We're ready to get started with the committee. If the board members could please make sure you have your microphones on. Ready, Bridget? Okay, good evening. It's 6:49 PM on Monday, February 24th, 2025. I'd like to call to order the Village of Brookfield Committee of the Whole meeting. Bridget, could we have a roll call for the committee meeting, please?
Trustee Ketchmark?
Here.
Trustee Cote?
Here.
Trustee Hendricks?
Here.
Trustee Niramatsu?
Here.
Trustee Guhuli?
Here.
Trustee Kaluzny?
Here.
And President Garvey.
Here. Thank you for coming, everyone. We have, the first two items are discussion, as Trustee Ketchmark noted. We have some recommendations for PIP grant applications from the EDC. I'm going to ask Deanne to summarize the nature of the project. We'll go one by one. We'll do the first one and the second one, but each one, we'll just go through the recommendation for each one and a little bit about the project. And if the applicants are here and want to say anything, we'll let them do that. So thank you, Deanne.
Thank you. Before you is a PIP application for Loca Mocha Cafe at 8858 Burlington. They're obviously at the train station. They have a lease with the village, and we are the sublessor with Metra, Burlington Northern. Their PIP application is a signage upgrade, and they want to replace their outdated signage and put up a new white channel letter sign. The cost estimate is $5,310.29. The reimbursement they're asking for is 50% of that, which is $2,655.41. And I'll show you the next slide. Yeah, I don't know. So that first rendering is their existing signage, and then they're proposing adding the channel letters on two lines, Loca Mocha Cafe. The EDC reviewed the proposed application, and they unanimously approve it. They support the change. They felt it was a great improvement. The petitioner is present if you have any questions.
Sure. Would you guys like to say something? You don't have to, but you're welcome to come up. You want to?
Come on, Maria.
Thank you for being here, Maria. If you like, you don't have to say anything, but if you'd like to say anything to the board, if we just have your name for the record.
I'm Araceli Verduzco, and I'm the owner of Loca Mocha. No, I just want to thank everybody for taking in my application, and I don't know.
That's okay.
No. Thank you for applying for the program, and I know the planning, or the EDC had a unanimous recommendation. Do any board members have any questions of the applicant while she's up?
I just had one question. Is it the signage just on one side of the building facing the tracks?
Yes.
Yes. Cool.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Any other questions or comments, whether for the applicant or staff?
I have a question for staff. This does comply with current sign code, correct?
It does.
Okay, thank you.
It meets sign code, yes.
Okay. So the process will be, we'll put this up for a board vote in 2 weeks at the March 10th meeting?
Mm-hmm.
March 10th meeting. And if the board approves it, staff, you're welcome to come to that meeting. We'll vote on it at the very beginning of the meeting. You're welcome to come to the March 10th meeting. If you're not here, that's okay, staff. I'll let you know the result afterwards. But thank you for applying for the program and improving your business. We appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, Deanne, you want to move on to Bill's Place
Yes.
Express, I'm sorry.
So we have a property improvement grant request for Bill's Place Express going at 8819 Ogden Avenue. They have extensive exterior and interior renovation project planned ahead. This is for a PIP request for the exterior improvements, which include a stone base, monument sign, landscaping, and lighting, and an awning. This is one of two required proposals that was submitted. So in other words, we require two contractor bids. They've only provided one. They had an interior building demo permit issued in January 9th for the pre-construction, but we are still waiting for building permits and plan submission. Their projected cost for the exterior is $41,100, and they're requesting the maximum reimbursement of $20,000 for their exterior improvements with the PIP. This first rendering shows the current status of the building and their proposed rendering, including that monument sign, which is showing some content, but it was just for visual purposes. That will be shifted, the orientation of that monument sign will be shifted, so you'll see it driving down Ogden. They were just showing it facing Ogden for visual. But they do intend to add the stone base based on the PIP rather than just the plaster, and then the wraparound awning, and then the other project improvements. The EDC reviewed this as well, and they felt that it was a good recommendation to go forward to the board for approval. They supported the the projected project.
Thank you, Dean.
The petitioner was going to
Yeah,
be here.
I see Dimitri's here, and he brought some of his consultants with him, I think. Dimitri, you want to bring your consultants up with you? I know these are the real brains of the operation, I know, so.
This is Thanasi, Dimitri, and Vasily.
Welcome, gentlemen.
We look forward to coming back into Brookfield where my dad started in 1984.
Yes.
If you have any questions about the project, anybody?
Any board members have any questions?
Will you have your full menu?
No, so it's going to be a limited menu, no chicken, no pizza, salads. We're going back and forth with my dad. But it's going to be quick, in and out. We want to utilize a drive-through, fresh cut fries. We're going to be fast.
Excellent, very exciting.
Any
I'm
other-
excited too.
The board may want to place conditions on this.
that the-
Chicken, white,
Too small. We plan on submitting plans, hopefully end of this week, beginning of next week, on the west side of the building at 200 square feet of just more kitchen space, so it could be more functioning, more fast. We need more equipment, all new inside, all new, parking lot. We want to put a fence around, add some pole lights, just bring some life back into that spot.
Trustee Gahuli, did you have a question?
I think I love the rendering. I think it looks really nice, good carryover from the other location. And, I appreciate the attention to the design.
Yeah. Ice cream, we're gonna have. We're gonna do just like a fancier type of soft serve ice cream, just because we don't have really that much space. They have scooped ice cream, so we're gonna do a nice soft serve with flavor injected soft serve type of ice cream.
And this
If
is
I may, I
Sure.
forgot to mention, it may require a sign variance.
Okay.
It's an FYI.
Yeah. And for now, these are the plans for now. I've been trying to get your dad back, and I'm one of the old timers that remembers Bill's was actually in Brookfield way back when so I've been trying to get him back in, and we appreciate you. I think there's going to be a lot of excitement. I'm surprised word hasn't spread more, but when word spreads about that you're going to be there, it's going to do very well. And even though I live half a block from your LaGrange Park location, you're going to add a lot to my commute, because I will be going to the Brookfield location, so.
Yeah, thank you.
And I think it's such a great use for that space. I mean, it's dying for something, and this is a perfect fit.
And you're one of the things, besides your food, your service and the speed and the way you prepare food and the way you serve your customers, that's exactly what's going to work over there.
And
so.
we're gonna carry that over there. I mean, we're hoping we don't have too much lost business from LaGrange Park going into Brookfield. So we're just trying to, hopefully everything.
No, but I think there's
everything
more
maintains.
business to be had, and nothing against our neighbors to LaGrange Park, but I'll be spending most of my dollars in Brookfield, so. Okay. Any other questions for Dimitri and his consultants?
I just, I'm so happy to, it's such a good community of the whole meeting where we get to meet two of the great business owners that we have in our area between Bill's Place and of course Locomoca, and just been stalwarts of the community and of both communities, of our communities and the school districts. And I just, raising my kids are all grown and, often now, but I mean, whenever we were at Brook Park, everything was at Bill's Place.
Yeah.
And then whenever we're doing anything on this side of the town, as Maria would know, my wife is always at Locomoca. It's just exciting to see you guys, both businesses taking advantage of the program that we have out here. So thank you very much to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? So same thing, March 10th will be on the March 10th agenda. If you want to come, you can. You don't have to. We'll let you know the results afterwards. So thank you,
All right,
gentlemen.
say thank you. All right, thank you.
Keep them in order. Thank you, Deanne.
Thank you.
All right, the next item up for discussion, as Tim hinted, it's going to be a busy year. Last year, we talked about how busy it was, and we acknowledge and admit there was some inconvenience, and getting around town was tough, and there was a lot of dust and debris and construction barricades and things, but watch what we're going to do this year. It's going to be even more, but, and again, these things are necessary, they're important improvements, but we did want to have a discussion about the schedule and how it can affect some things going forward. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over. Tim, do you want to say anything first, or we're just going to?
No, you had good opening comments there. It's going to be a busy year this year, and we're excited about that, but we also recognize there's going to be impacts. And what Dan's about to talk about, Dan O'Malley from Hancock Engineering, is our downtown, Grand Boulevard, Brookfield Avenue are going to be greatly impacted by significant yet important improvements that are coming up this summer. And the next agenda item dovetails with this because it's going to interfere with our usual concerts on Grand schedule. So we wanted to early on, we've already had one meeting with the business owners to inform them of what's going on, but realize the village board has not had an in-depth conversation or discussion or presentation about what the project schedule is going to be. So Dan is the guy for planning this and overseeing it, so we thought it'd be a good time for him to come in and inform the public as to what's about to happen. So Dan O'Malley.
Can I clarify something real
Sure.
quick? I know that, pretty sure in the packet it said the property owners had all been notified. But you just said the business owners too. Have they both been? Or do we rely on the property owners to then let the business owners know?
Yeah, so we did do am I on here? We did do a public meeting last July, and I'll go into that as part of this presentation about our communication plan.
Great.
And just keeping everyone aware of the project so that we're at least notifying everyone of the impacts that are to come. Like Tim said, it's going to be a little difficult during construction, but we want to at least communicate as well as we can, so no one's surprised by what's in store, so.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Dan, thank you.
Yeah.
The floor is
Yeah.
yours.
So I'm here today to kind of give you guys an update on the project. I'll try to keep it as brief as possible so Luke can get up and discuss the events that are to come. But we do have a lot of information to cover, so.
Take your time, this is important, so take your time.
Perfect. Yeah, so part of the agenda, we'll go over the project status and the funding, a reminder of what the project location and the limits are, go over some of the scope of improvements, the construction phasing, the parking impacts and the timeline, and go over some of the details of the detour plan that'll be in place throughout the construction, as well as, like I mentioned, the communication plan before opening it up to any questions or discussion. So just an update on the project status. So the project was let by IDOT on January 17th. The low bid was just over $4.5 million, just under the engineer's estimate, and it went to Schroeder Asphalt Services. They're a contractor that does work around here. They last worked in Brookfield, I believe it was 2017. IDOT is in the process of awarding the contracts and getting everything executed. It's a process that typically takes about 6 weeks. Staff has requested that IDOT expedite the awards and the documentation if possible, because we'd like to set up a pre-construction meeting and start our coordination with the contractor. All the scheduling information that I'm going to go over is just projected. We're going to try to work with the contractor as soon as we can and get some firm dates so that we can provide that information to the village. Funding update. So this is our funding breakdown for the project. The construction and construction engineering total cost is approximately $5 million for the project. The Brookfield share is only $1 million of that, or 20%. The remaining $4 million comes from federal funding from the STP, the Surface Transportation Program. It's a fund that we have taken a lot of advantage of over the last few years on some of our collector route construction. It's the same thing that we funding vehicles that we use for Shields, for Washington, and for Burlington over the last couple of years. It's allowed us to do a lot more than we maybe normally would have. It's allowed us to add these streetscape improvements when initially the project was just going to be a resurfacing project. So the project location, so we will have the 3700 block of Grand Boulevard. That'll be the majority of our streetscape improvements, and then Brookfield Avenue from Prairie to Woodside, and then that stretch going up to Washington, so parts of Woodside, Parkview, and Gulf Road. Those will all be part of the project, and that'll be mainly resurfacing improvements on that section. Scope of improvements, this is specifically for Grand Boulevard. We've got some intermittent curb and gutter replacement. The sidewalk will be replaced in full, and part of the replacement will include a 2-foot strip of brick pavers at the back of the curb, similar to what we've got on Broadway Avenue currently. New trees will be planted with new tree grates. All the light poles will be replaced, as well as the conduit. We will have a new decorative seat wall that'll be installed near Brookfield Breakfast, and that'll have Village of Brookfield displayed on it. And as part of that seat wall, we'll have electrical connection in the back of it so that we can connect for future events. This will allow all the future events to not need generators to be brought in. They can just connect directly to that and kind of build off of that. So, and then finally, we'll have milling and resurfacing of the pavement, new signage, and striping. So that's the general scope of work. I also included some visuals in here. This is a rendering of what Grand Boulevard will look like. The highlights are, like I mentioned, the sidewalk with the brick strip behind the curb, and then we'll have alternating trees with new tree grates, and then light poles. Proposed light poles are on here. On the left, we've got the pedestrian poles. This is a 15-foot light pole. It'll look similar to the ones on Broadway, just smaller. It's a pedestrian pole rather than a roadway pole. And this will have planter arms. It'll have banner arms that the village staff can build off of, and it'll have electrical connections if we want to string lights for holidays, that type of thing. And then on the right, we've got a combination roadway and pedestrian pole, and these will kind of bookend Grand Boulevard. We'll have a couple at Grant and then a couple at the railroad crossing. Again, these will have the planter arms and the banner arms. And finally, we've got the rendering for the decorative seat wall. This will go, like I said, by Brookfield Breakfast. It's got a brick veneer. It's got backlit channel lettering with Village of Brookfield on it. Be very visible to the metro station, as well as anyone driving by on Brookfield, Grand Prairie. This will, I think, be a really good improvement for that area. So this is going to be the a little bit more complicated portion. So if anything doesn't make sense, please interrupt me. But this is the construction phasing and the parking impacts during construction. So the construction is going to be broken down into 4 stages. I put projected durations and timelines on here, but as I mentioned, once we meet with the contractor, we'll have a better idea for specific durations and dates. Stage 1 will be the sidewalk work on the east side of the street. That'll be everything from the back of curb to the buildings, sidewalk replacement, brick paver installation, trees, lighting. It'll take approximately 7 weeks, and we project construction to start about mid-April, so that would go to late May. During this time, during the day, the contractor will be working on the east side of the street, so the parking will be inaccessible, and at night, they will push all of their equipment and vehicles to the north portion of the east side of the street to try to open up a little bit more parking, specifically down by the businesses on the south side. So you can see the exhibit there. The green is parking available. The red is parking unavailable. We did do a utilization study with the Brookfield Police while we were designing to try to get an idea of how much of that parking is being utilized on a daily basis, weekdays, weekends, and tried to keep up with what is actually being used. So try to keep that in mind and try to keep as much accessible as possible.
Dan, if I could ask, with working on the sidewalks, obviously it's, curb all the way to the front of the business. Will there be days where people won't have access to the businesses on the east side, where they won't be able to get in during the day?
We don't anticipate that. We have it staged so that they're doing like half of the sidewalk, so it's about 10 feet. So they're doing the 5 foot behind the curb at one point, and then when they switch to the 5 foot between the midpoint and the business, we'll have some ramps so that the businesses can always be accessed. It's not going to be the easiest thing in the world,
Sure.
but we wanted to make sure no businesses are going for any prolonged period of time inaccessible.
Great.
So, yeah, then that's why, part of the reason why the duration's 7 weeks, it potentially could get done quicker,
But you'd have a
we wanted
complete
to balance-
shutdown. You'd have to have a complete shutdown, basically.
Exactly,
So-
giving accessibility, maintaining parking, maintaining a safe environment for the contractor to work, and just a variety of factors, so.
Great, thank you.
Stage 2, same scope of work, just on the other side of the street, where they'll be working within the sidewalk area, same duration. So if they pick that up after stage 1, potentially early June, we're looking at a completion of mid-July. Stage 3 would be the roadway improvements. So this will be broken down into 2 phases. The first would be milling the street, doing any pavement patching of deteriorated sections of pavement, and then installing the first layer of asphalt. We're going to do this half of the pavement at a time. So whichever half that the contractor's working on, the other half will have accessible parking and through traffic. And then finally, stage 4 is the last portion of the roadway improvements. This is the installation of the final layer of asphalt, signage, pavement markings. This is our shortest duration. It's only going to take 3 to 7 days likely. The issue with this is that in order to get a clean installation of the final layer of asphalt, we will need to shut down the whole section of the street during the day. We will open it up to local traffic at night, so the businesses aren't going without the parking access, but during the day, there will be no parking while they're completing this work. We're going to work with the contractor and try to limit this as much as possible. I think there's a possibility we could get this down to 2 days, but without talking with them first, we try to be conservative and project it to a week. So, any questions about the staging before I move on to the detour?
What phase is is this the phase where there will be the lights and things installed, or the poles and the lights, or is that part of the sidewalk installation?
Yeah, good question. The lighting will be part of the sidewalk installation. So
Okay.
that'll be part of stage 1 and 2, which, yeah, by this point, they should have full lights. The electrical should have been switched over, and this is just the roadway improvements, the asphalt and the pavement markings.
And the wall, which I think is a big part, so will that be part of the sidewalk improvement on the east side? Is that part of that phase?
Correct. Yeah, that should be part of stage 1. If that's taking a little bit longer, it is pretty technical, specialized work. We might try to coordinate with the contractor to work, within that area while moving on to stage 2, because we don't want
Sure.
the construction to start to prolong. We want to keep things moving, and if we can move to the next stage and get the street opened up as soon as possible, then we'll possibly change things up. But yeah, currently that's part of stage 1.
Great, thank you.
Now, the trees are going to be installed by village staff, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. There are a couple of items that will be part of, that the village will do outside of this contract. We'll meet with, and we already have discussed with staff during design, but we'll meet with them to go over the timeline.
Okay.
One of those is the tree removals and tree plantings.
Do you expect that would happen during these phases or after?
It's a good question. I'd like it to happen during, because I think it'll be easier to coordinate, because they are going to be part of the improvement for the trees. Right now, they're kind of confined to that tree grate. It's a small box. It's part of the reason why those trees aren't flourishing. We're actually installing some structural soil across the whole block to allow for the trees to have more root growth. It'll be about 3 feet deep by, I believe it's 6 feet wide, and it's across the whole sidewalk underneath. So while they're doing that and excavating that, I think it would make sense for the trees to be planted so that when it's all backfilled, it's all part of one process. But If it makes sense for the health of the tree to do it afterward, it'll just be something that we'll have to coordinate, so.
Sounds good. Thank you.
That'll be something that we'll, when we talk to the contractor, we'll meet with the village staff and determine what's best for the trees and what the best way forward is.
I have another quick question about phase 1 and 2. I know that streetscape, like furniture, wasn't part of the grant, but we do have some benches and other things to reuse and bike racks. Is that all going to get reinstalled or coordinated as part of that piece?
Yes, that'll be another portion of the village scope of work. We put in the budget some, for 2025, some furnishings like benches, garbage, recycling receptacles, potentially some planters. So that'll be something that we'll coordinate with the village and determine when it's best to install those things.
Cool, thanks.
So the detour plan, if the contractor's going to be working on one side of the street, it's not going to be feasible to have traffic going in both directions. We tried to find a way to make it work. I don't think that there's any way to kind of safely get traffic and construction going, at least in both directions. So during stage 1 through 3, we set up a detour where southbound traffic will be able to go through and will be unchanged, but northbound traffic will be rerouted up Prairie to Washington. This will take approximately 16 weeks based on those durations that we looked at for stage 1 through 3. It's about mid-April to late July. This is what we'll have to do to maintain the parking. And then for stage 4, during the day, like I said, we'll have to shut down the whole street. So for 3 to 7 days, we'll have all traffic routed to Prairie and to Washington, southbound and northbound. Communication plan, like I mentioned, we did have a public informational meeting in July, and that was to go over the design, get any feedback, which we did get some really good feedback that we did incorporate, and just to introduce the project. I believe we had about 25 residents and business owners attend, and we had 3 trustees. So that was really good information and feedback to get. Now, moving forward, we are planning on putting a project notice out either this week or next week. That'll be delivered to all the businesses and any nearby residences, and that'll go over just general project information, general start date, scope of work, that type of thing, communication, like staff and contact information. And then we'll update that once we meet with the contractor and can provide more specific information.
And if I think that goes to Trustee Gooley's point, so you're hand delivering to the actual business. Sometimes the registered property owner is different than the business owner, so we're not just mailing to the registered property owner, we're actually dropping physical copies off at the businesses?
Yes, yeah, that's correct. We're going to follow the same plan that we did for the 2023 water main improvements on Grand Boulevard. I think that went really well. We got some really good feedback from the businesses while we were hand delivering them. So Hancock would probably hand deliver all the notices to the business owners on Grand, and then what we did then was Public Works delivered the notices to the residences, maybe within a block or 2 blocks of the construction. So,
Great.
yes. Yeah, and all of that information will be available online. It'll be posted on the village website, social media. It'll be sent out in e-newsletter. We want to try to just get as much information out as soon as possible. So, like I said, no one's surprised, and everyone's kind of aware of what's to come. So then the next step will be putting the project information out in the Brookfielder, which will be sent in mid to late March. And this will include information on our second public informational meeting, which will be held in late March. And that'll provide some specific information about the project. By that point, we'll have had our pre-construction meeting with the contractor, and we can actually provide, hopefully, a specific start date and a little bit more specific information just as far as the duration of the project. So next, we will put up some changeable message signs at each end of the project 2 weeks before construction starts. This will just provide a start date and information on the detour so that anyone that's driving by, specifically anyone that's not local, will see that and be able to plan accordingly. And then 1 week prior to construction, we'll send out a second notice, just letting businesses know, reminding them when construction's starting. So additionally, we'll put out a notice to the businesses 1 week before any stage changes. This will include any parking impacts so that they can either post it on within their business or just let their staff know, anyone else. And then we'll provide a weekly update to staff that they can put in an e-newsletter every week to just provide update on the project, let them know if there's any changes, or just let everyone know if everything's on schedule. So
Who will be in charge of that e-newsletter? Is that going to be here at Village Hall, or is that from your team?
yeah, so we will provide the update, and then Bob Uphughes will send it out. So that's what we've done for since Bob started last year, and I think it's been a really good source of information. So yeah, we usually provide it around Thursday, and then he'll send it out on Friday.
I agree. That's one of the great strides we've made is in communicating it, and I know a lot of the substance comes from Hancock Engineering, but getting the word out. I mean, people legitimately can't say they didn't know because we do get it out. I mean, it's almost information overload. There's more information than some people might want, but I think that's clearly better than the alternative. And then, as we always know, things just happen on some of these projects when there's emergencies or changes or things. We're really good about getting that out. I think you guys communicate really well with Bob, and staff gets that information out, and so people will have access to the information if they're concerned about updates and want to know what's going on. So,
Yep, looks like a good plan.
How does the work along Brookfield Avenue fit into the staging?
Yeah, so Brookfield Avenue from Prairie to Arden will have some streetscape elements to it. We've got lighting going there. They'll be resetting the brick that's along that section. There's going to be less disturbance there. We'll have some parking impacts, but just because there is less parking there, it'll be something that will let the businesses know, keep them informed, but we don't anticipate as much of a impact in that area. We'll have two-way traffic maintained at all times unless we're paving. So there is a one-day shutdown for that. We've got a detour in place, and we'll pass that information out. But yeah, not as much as Grand Boulevard.
Great.
It is the height of Little League season, however, so that's a pretty busy corridor right in there.
and we'll,
That's good to
Parking
know.
and-
and we'll communicate with Brookfield Lily, and also not to tease the next thing. We're talking about how it's going to affect music on Grand, but the parade route's actually going to have to be changed Grand Boulevard, but we still hope to be able to go down Brookfield Avenue and end up at Kiwanis Park under the scenarios. Is there any danger that work on Brookfield Avenue would be around the 4th of July and would prevent, that stretch being used? If, for instance, if we came Prairie to Brookfield Avenue and the parade came down Brookfield Avenue to the Village Hall, would there be any danger that we're installing light poles or resurfacing or having the street torn up at that point?
It'll be something that we'll have to communicate with village staff. And like I said, when the contract gets awarded and we can sit down with the contractor and have a better idea of when they anticipate work going on, we'll coordinate with village staff and try to determine what the best solution is.
And then we could help get, I don't know who the new Little League president or board is, but we can work to maybe get them on any specific notification list, because Trustee Gahuli brings up a good point. I mean, that's a lot of people are going to Kiwanis Park for games and things like this, and just adding that to the, notification list, they could sign up for the alerts or things like that.
And the
So,
farmer's market as well.
right. So
Yep.
make sure the farmers market committee is on the specific notification list. So.
Yeah, we'll make note of that, and then we'll deal with Bob and kind of come up with the best strategy for informing those entities, and whether it's us, getting their information and being able to communicate with them on a daily basis, or Bob sending something out, we'll determine.
Yeah, and I think if they have access and they're notified, they have access, they know where they can go and look for information. If there's something specific that's definitely going to affect the farmer's market, on a particular day or weekend, or in general, the thing with the Little League is, I mean, there's games at Overholt Field and there's games at Gav Field, and they're just going to have to notify their parents and players to, leave early, allow more time to get there, where the detour routes, that type of thing, or visiting teams coming from out of town. Once we turn that over to Brookfield Little League, they can communicate to, their families, their parents, and the teams coming from other communities. But it's more about, the parade is something, like I said, I know we're going to be talking about that in terms of where we go, but we know there's going to be inconvenience, but we really like to be able to have the parade where we still, if the alternative route is to come down Prairie to Brookfield Avenue, that 4th of July, I mean, I forgot what day, the 4th, is it? It's not a Sunday this year, whatever day it's on, the parade's usually on the 4th. If we could try to make sure that we have open access to Brookfield Avenue, and, the reviewing stand and things is typically right there in front of the Historical Society and stuff. I was just picturing if there's light pole installation or something going on in the middle, that could be problematic. And it's really a one-day event. It's maybe a day or two setup ahead of time for Public Works, but if we could just try and coordinate that with, notice ahead of time so that route is accessible, that would be great.
Yeah, it's something that, as part of the design, we've tried to anticipate as much as possible, obviously, but we've written our specs in a way to try to cover us for anything that we can anticipate that will, any bridges that we'll have to cross throughout construction. Another one is the school over by Gulf Road. We put some time contingencies in there so it's not being, affecting drop-off. So the streetscape, for instance, needs to be done by 4:30 so that they can open up the parking so it's not affecting the businesses at night. But anything else, we'll have to just coordinate with village staff, coordinate with the contractor, and determine, the best way to deal with some of these issues that come up. So,
Great. Did you have anything else, Dan? Or?
nope, that's all I've got. So,
Thank you. Further questions or comments from the board?
A carrot and a stick approach could be, if this thing goes well, could have a grand marshal sitting here right next to us. I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, but
Is it true, Dan, that you're just going to be living on Grand Boulevard this summer?
yeah, I don't plan on leaving.
We'll bring you water and stuff.
No. I mean, it is a massive scale project. It's an exciting project. There is going to be inconvenience, but our residents and our businesses always respond, and I mean, they'll make the best of it. There'll be increased traffic flow on Prairie, and I know those business owners on Prairie will take advantage of that, and some of the other things in the parade may be going down that way. The end result will be really something exciting to have it done and look at, and we'll have a big, maybe have a big ribbon cutting and maybe a concert to celebrate the opening of the street. So.
Just to clarify real quick, sorry. You said the construction is 6 months, will be done in September, but the Grand Boulevard will just be 4 months. So is
That's correct. Yeah, I believe we have a completion date of like September 21st or something like that. So Brookfield and Grand at one point will likely be being constructed at the same time, but they just have different scope of improvements. So it'll kind of depend on when the contractor wants to get started on Brookfield Avenue in order to get it done by September. So,
Okay.
But, so is the paving done at different times between those two?
I
Because
would
it seemed like it all kind of rolled together, is that the paving is kind of the minor portion of that.
yeah, it's not required to be done at the same time. I would anticipate that they would try to coordinate it so that it's done at the same time. What I would think is if Grand Boulevard's going to take 4 months and let's say Brookfield will take 2 months, they might wait 2 months to then start Brookfield so that they all kind of culminate at the same time. But they're not required to be paved at the same time. In case it makes more sense to just get in, and obviously we want Grand paved as soon as it can be. So that's the number one priority.
And yeah, I was looking for the Fine Arts Festival date to see when that,
The 28th.
of September. I thought they were moving it a little earlier this year, but no, okay.
I think it's the 27th or 28th, because Meet the Creek is the week before.
Got it.
But obviously, it's going to affect everything, concerts in the park, and even the concerts in the
Yeah.
parks are going to be affected. It's going to take some more time for people to get there and to these places, but again, it's going to be well worth it, so, and just the communication is the best thing we could do, is get it out there as much as possible.
I did have a, I hate to ask this question, I know you answered it once before, Tim, but $4 million in federal loans as of we're looking right now,
Grants.
or grant money, that money's coming in, grant money. We're still expecting to get that.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, we have not heard anything else. We've reached out to Mike Fricano, the planning liaison for the Central Council of Mayors, and we have not heard anything otherwise.
Do we know when they expect to release that money, that funding?
Typically, they will release it as we request invoice for it, so throughout the project, as we are paying for the contractor. So this project was part of the contingency funding, so we applied for contingency funding to include the streetscape. It actually, because we got out to bid so early and got our Phase 2 design completed, it got moved to the programmed list for this fiscal year, and some other projects now will take the contingency funding. So, yeah, it's fully programmed, fully planned on, so we haven't heard anything otherwise. And obviously, if anything were to change, we would let village staff know immediately, but we don't foresee that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Dan? All right, Dan, thank you very much for the detailed presentation information, and we'll be seeing you a lot around town, so thank you.
I'll be at Paisans if you need me.
Okay, well, Dan just set the table for Luke to tell us about how this is going to necessarily impact one of the great events of summer, Music on Grand, for 2025. So, Luke?
Thank you, President Garvey. Thank you, Dan, for giving that detailed presentation about the project schedule. As he said, it's not set in stone. It's one that's I'm going to be keeping tabs on it as we go through the project, just making sure that I'm up to date on when the new timelines are. And Dan has been excellent at getting that communication over to me, just to make sure that we're planning the recreation programs and events, to be on time and able to, function as they're intended to. So to get into it, the current location for where Music on Grand is, there's a couple considerations that we took into account. One being the distance. The distance that we approximated to be about 342 feet. The reason this is important is that, as you know, if you've been to Music on Grand, it does draw a good amount of people to it. So when we're considering these locations, we're considering if it can accommodate the amount of people that we get to these events. So the next thing is the main purpose for Music on Grand. The main purpose of Music on Grand is, for one, it's an attraction for the residents to come out to. And part of that, it's also, giving light to our downtown businesses, giving that, economic boost to them as well. Some of the locations we looked at to try to help, look at different options for Music on Grand so that we're not losing, events. All the different event locations we looked at all had different pros and cons to them. So one of the locations we looked at was Southwest Broadway. Some of the cons included disruption to the fire department, and then also it messes up some accessibility to the businesses that are there. As you know, when we close off Grand, we're closing off Friday morning and then opening up on Monday morning. So that has some effect on some of the businesses during that weekend time. Low parking options was one of the considerations there. And then the parking is mainly across the other side of 8 Corners. So then the other thing we'd have to consider is the interruption to traffic flow and the pedestrian management on 8 Corners there. And then some of the pros is it is near some of the Brookfield shops that are newly going to be going in there. So we saw that as a pro. And then some of the businesses that can benefit from there would be benefited as well. Next location we looked at was on Burlington. So that's south of the tracks. Some of the cons that we saw there was interruption to traffic flow across Prairie. This is mainly due to the location that we have there, the green area. As I mentioned earlier, the amount of people we get there, it's about half the size of where we're at now. So there would be a lot of overflow pedestrians on the side, and it would fill up that whole area essentially. Another con is we have where the stage would make sense would be along their extra pulled in area for near Locomoca. But that is right next to some residential housing. As you know, the music on Grand can be very loud, and if you have a stage right behind your house, you definitely hear it. So we saw that as a con. But one of the pros that we did see for that location, it is close to the Village Hall in the downtown area. There is Irish Times business there, so you get some of that economic access with that location. We also looked at our parks, Ellert Park and Kiwanis Park. The main issue that we've seen was scheduling conflicts. We have pavilion rentals that go throughout the whole summer. We have rentals pretty much Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, every weekend in the summer. So it would affect some of those scheduling. And then as well as some of our baseball and soccer groups who use it over the summer, they'd be affected as well. And then being at Ellert Park in Kiwanis, we would require and able to do food and liquor. There'd be special event licenses we'd have to go through. Both park locations lack the potential for that business economic growth factor that we were mentioning. And then the higher increase in logistics and event support needed just to help manage the alcohol consumption, because there's no main blockage of area. Whereas when you're on Music on Grand, you have this sectioned off spaces at each of the business locations, which control that alcohol consumption area.
And Luke, if I could ask, independent of like possibly what we're considering with the Music on Grand, do we still plan on having a full slate of concerts and movies in the parks?
Correct. So we will still, Friday concert series will go as it was last year. That, I believe, starts, I want to say June 13th, but it's the second Friday in June, and then it goes all the way through August. I believe that the last date is August 22nd. And then historically, if we have any cancellations due to weather, we do add on to the end of the season, so we can get those concerts in as well. But that won't be affected, the Friday night concerts.
Okay.
Here are some additional considerations. Again, thank you to Hancock Engineering, Dan, for giving some of those details. We met with them, and being able to hold the Music on Grand on the current location, just, I mean, with all you've heard in the previous presentation, it just wouldn't be feasible. And then changing the location of the Music on the event, Music on Grand, it would change the essence of why the event was created, which is the economic growth factor that we're looking at, and somewhere was a good gathering space that we can bring a lot of people like that into our community. Another consideration is each Music on Grand last year averaged about 11,000, just under 11,000 in costs, with associations to band fees, stage lighting, and then the sound for the event. So not having two events, we would have the additional funds in our event budget to actually look at new events that we can produce in Brookfield, in lieu of missing those two events. Yes, so the recommendation is that we do not do the Music on Grand in June and July, just due to the construction. And we're looking for board consent.
And then get back to, I mean, like as I teased, maybe August, the August concert can be a kind of a grand reopening of the street and kickoff. We would be able to have two concerts, hopefully August and September, right?
Absolutely. So we're still in the process of, after hearing the projected schedule from Hancock Engineering, we are still planning on doing the last one in August, Music on Grand, as well as the last one in September. And it'll give the community an opportunity to see all the beautiful landscape work that is done.
And I mean, we put this up tonight. I know it's not a surprise to the board. I mean, last meeting, we talked about how the bike race needed to be rerouted because of this work going on, but I know all of you could anticipate it was going to affect Music on Grand, and I know it's extremely popular, and I know there's going to be disappointed people out there because even today with the weather being nice, people were talking about they can't wait for these summer events to happen, but I mean, it's pretty obvious from, just listening to Dan's presentation earlier and the scope of the work, there's no way we could do it on the 3700 block of Grand. And I applaud staff and I know all the departments were involved in looking at the various alternative sites. It's not like we just said, look, we're not going to do it. We didn't look at other sites. They looked at the alternative sites, and I mean, their clear recommendation is that none of those sites work to fit the same purpose and safety and goals. So how does the board have questions or comments about staff's recommendation to forego the June and July?
And just a question about, I guess, the construction. So the work on Brookfield Avenue wouldn't impede anything for Music on Grand, is that right?
I would have to confer to Dan from Hancock.
It'll be something that I think we'll have to
Coordinate.
sit down and just kind of make sure that the schedules work. I don't think so. I don't want to guarantee that, but the scope of work is less than it is on Grand Boulevard. So we would do whatever we could to make it so that it doesn't impact it.
Okay, thanks. I think the commission was, the commission meeting there was a consensus to not try to move it to a different location. And I think we discussed only having one event maybe in September. Is that what we discussed? I can't quite
Correct.
remember.
At the time when we had the meeting, we didn't get the projected timeline of the
Right.
schedule.
Okay.
So that kind of helped us with their projected timeline being early August. The last Saturday in August for Music on Grand is August 30th.
Oh, okay.
So it gives us some extra leeway time in case if construction runs a little bit longer.
Okay. I would just be worried about like managing expectations and overpromising in August Music on Grand, but we could maybe.
I mean, I think it'll be a fluid situation. I mean, obviously, weather and other, as we know from construction projects, how to say this, stuff happens, but we're going to, monitor. It could become apparent in July where it's not going to be ready for music in August, and we'll have to deal with that. But I know Dan is feeling the pressure right now to.
He wants to be Grand Marshal.
He wants to be Grand Marshal. And he can get up on stage in August and introduce the first band if you want. So, so no pressure, Dan.
I think it makes sense. I think it'd take a lot of staff time and effort to try and work out the logistics of a new location for just 2 times, to then come back and have all the rest of them even next year be at Grand. I just don't think it makes sense staff time-wise either. And we have plenty of concerts in the park.
The other event that would be impacted there is the car show. So the chamber will have to think about where they'll do that next year. I think they have done it on Broadway.
They've done it in
before,
Broadway
but
in the past, but that's typically like that third week of July or somewhere around there.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
So just make sure they know.
So we'll make sure that the chamber's notified of those parameters.
Just echoing some of the comments, it is fluid, and we don't know exactly how things will go. But with what you discussed, isn't that prime paving time for the August? I'm wondering if that August is really feasible. I mean, isn't that about the time when we're doing the paving portion?
So with paving, we've done paving as early as April, May. We've done paving as late. We did
Well,
some.
the timeline you had, though.
Oh,
The different phases on it,
We
it
had
seemed.
early August for stage 4, so paving and striping.
Okay.
I almost hate to say this, but we do believe that these are conservative timelines. We're gonna, like I said, we've already requested, and Tim has sent an email to IDOT trying to expedite the award of the contract so we can get pre-construction meetings started and hopefully get started as soon as possible. And our hope is that we can get this done sooner. Obviously, we can never project all of the issues
Sure.
that come up with construction, but That's the goal.
And I mean, we realize that, I mean, you've always been, your company's always been conservative, and we appreciate that. It's better to, err on the side of that, everything from your estimates to timing and stuff like this. The board is fully aware that we can't guarantee that it'll be done by the last week in August, but we'd like to hold open that hope, and we'll make, Luke will come to us and say, here's the drop dead day to decide if we're going to do music on Grand in August, and the board will just have to make a decision at that point in terms of what we do, going forward. Because I know there's ordering the stage and paying for the stage and booking the talents and everything, so there's always a drop dead date that you have to cancel by a certain day and plan for it, and the logistics of setting it up. And obviously, we don't want to do anything that affects the quality of the final, finished product. We don't want them rushing with the paving or rushing with any of the amenities, or if something's not done, that, we shouldn't have people on the block if it's not done and it's not safe to have people on there. I know the board's fully aware of that possibility, but let's shoot, I mean, if the board's okay, let's shoot for is there a consensus that we don't do the June and July and we shoot for the August at this point?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say we also really try to maybe pump up those movies and other music in Kiwanis as well, because people are going to be really disappointed. These are very popular events.
And is there possibility of other events based on canceling these two events, that there might be other events that you try and schedule throughout the summer as alternatives, or?
Or at Ellert Park or somewhere.
So with the opportunity of not doing these Music on Grands, there will be some budget money that would be available, that we can look at other events and stuff for the 2025 year. Yep.
Okay. Any other questions for Luke? All right, Luke and Dan, thank you very much for the presentation. There's clear consensus from the board that we're not going to do the June and July. There will be disappointed public. We'll deal with it. We'll shoot for August. Okay? Thank you. All right, that ends the items that we had up for discussion on our committee of the whole. One more time, I'll open it up to public comment. Is there anyone on the right side that has any public comment? Hearing none. Anyone on the left side? Okay, hearing no public comment, I'd entertain a motion at 7:45 to go into executive session pursuant to Section 2C5 of the Open Meetings Act to discuss purchase or lease of real property for the village's use.
So moved.
Second?
The motion to go into executive session was made by trustee Cote, second by trustee Gahuli. Roll call, please.
Trustee Ketchmark?
Aye.
Trustee Cote?
Aye.
Trustee Hendricks?
Aye.
Trustee Niramatsu?
Aye.
Trustee Gilhuli?
Aye.
Trustee Kaluzny?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, we're adjourned into executive session at 7:46. We will conduct executive session in the boardroom. We do not anticipate any board action